and welcome to Two Words Wolves Pod. I'm Ryan Eichten. With me is Leo Sun. Leo, how you been doing?
Life is good, Ryan. I am happy to be here. Those of you who have been just listening in, that didn't get a chance to see our live reaction episode last week, I've couldn't wipe this annoying smile off my face ever since last Wednesday, and that stayed pretty much the same right now. There hasn't been any Wolves basketball to have to bring me back down, and I could just think about every time when I hit a red light or I stub my toe or any little annoying, I can't find something at home. I just think about, you know what? The Wolves just eliminated the Lakers in 5 games, and I immediately perk back up. So I'm still on cloud 9 right now. So I'm feeling good, Ryan.
That's good to hear. I'm glad the smirk from the last series is still on your face, and I've been enjoying my little week off here because the games now are going to come fast and furious. The first round is always kind of weirdly spread out. They had a bunch of days off between games, and now basically games 1 through 5 are all right back to back of each other. So we're gonna know pretty quick what's going on. But yeah, since we last did a pod after Game 5, the Golden State Warriors defeated the Houston Rockets in 7 games. Who I imagine, being a Rockets fan, you just gotta hate the Warriors at this point. They've gone through both teams have gone, or the Rockets especially, have gone through a full rebuild and back again, and they're still staring down Steph Curry eliminating them. I'm sure that's not fun, but we applaud the Rockets for dragging it to 7. That's much appreciated. Even if I don't know, it was a kind of a talk. Did you have an opinion on whether you wanted to face Houston or Golden State? I was just kind of preferential to Houston because I weirdly think they're not very good. Maybe that's my own personal bias, but certainly the next best outcome was Houston dragging it to 7, and now the Wolves get home court.
Yeah, I was personally, again, I felt like I liked the Wolves' chances against either team, but if I had to pick one, I would have rather played the Rockets. I feel more similarly to you, is that they're just lacking that top-end talent that feels like, okay, it's a little bit scary when it comes to, okay, well, they don't have that playoff or championship experience on their team. They obviously have a great, coach putting it together over there, but you saw it as it unfolded. It was really tough for them to score. They just really didn't have those options, especially with Şengün getting shut down. And I know that he's had, a pretty good season against Rudy Gobert. He's played awesome against the Wolves, but I'll live with Şengün playing that way and relying on them, hoping for Jalen Green to get, these huge bursts, which he only did 1 out of 7 games. And I think had Jalen Green had another burst in one of those losses, they very much could have been the victors of that. So I think because of that, that's what makes me feel a little bit comfortable going to this Warriors series, because I think about, if I was confident that the Wolves could beat the Rockets, and the Rockets nearly beat the Warriors, I know it's not always a simple game of rock, paper, scissors here, but it does tell me a little something about how much legs do the Warriors have, given Steph's thumb injury, Jimmy's butt or leg injury, Draymond just constantly being a menace to society, on the verge of getting kicked out every game, and even though we know that's never going to happen. So yeah, I think the biggest part of my feelings on wanting to play the Rockets, so was outside of that, was the storyline of it all. Playing against the Warriors, there's a little bit of that fear of all right, well, now you're playing against, the remains of a dynasty. You're playing against the storylines of Draymond versus Rudy and Jimmy versus the Wolves, where it's almost similar to Lakers, where personally for me, the Lakers were more of a skeleton in my closet that I didn't want to risk losing to them. Against the Warriors, it's less so, but still a little bit of that, where it's, I don't want to lose to the Warriors, but it's not as bad as say we lost the Lakers for me. So.
Yeah, I agree. I'm in the same boat. Would have preferred Houston, but it was ultimately kind of a toss-up for me, and they certainly have the rest advantage, a big rest advantage in this series. Golden State now, at 48 hours after playing in Game 7, has to come to Minneapolis for a pair of games. There isn't the only extra days off in this series are between Games 5 and 6, so even when they're traveling, there's only the 1 day off between games. I think that really favors the Wolves, especially as Butler and Curry both played 45 plus minutes in that Game 7. I think Game 1 is going to be a pretty big opportunity for the Wolves to set the tone in this series. Have the legs. The Warriors have just been, the past few weeks have been playing. They had to play Memphis in a play-in game to even get in, where the Wolves, thank you Harrison Barnes and the Spurs for helping the Wolves out there. Yeah, thinking about the Warriors, they're very similar to the Lakers to me in a lot of ways. Their top end guys, or at least like they don't have like, I would probably say LeBron is better than the Warriors' second best guy. Although Jimmy, maybe that's a pretty good comparison. And Steph and Luka are little bit different. Where the Warriors' top guy is the older guy, and the Warriors, I guess Jimmy and Curry are both kind of getting up there in age. But yeah, it's very similar. Where once you kind of get past their starting five, the Warriors aren't quite as thin as the Lakers were, where Lakers were just playing five guys and hoping they can get away with it. Where the Lakers or the Warriors do have a little bit more depth, but ultimately, like, depth is a huge point in the Wolves category. Just I would like, just thinking about it. Would Dante start on this Warriors team? I would think so. Would Nas start on this Warriors team? Absolutely. Would Nikhil start on this Warriors team? Probably a coin toss whether you like Buddy Hield or Podziemski or whoever, but certainly would be getting a large sum of minutes on the Warriors. Like, I think like I prefer Ant over Curry at this stage of their careers. It's not, even comparing to the Lakers, it's not like there isn't really a spot on the roster where I feel like the Lakers have some sort of giant advantage, and it's not to say like that makes this series like a clean sweep or whatever, but like I just think the Wolves have so many advantages going into this series that it will end up being a disappointment if they're not able to come through, because a lot is going their way right now.
Yeah, I agree with a lot of what you said as well too. It's like they're similar, but they're not. And obviously that storyline. Okay, yeah, everyone loves to talk about, is Ant going to collect another Infinity Stone of a future Hall of Famer on this kind of gauntlet tour that he's been going on for 2 years now? And that's fine and all. And yes, I mean, there's some truth to, all right, eliminating Steph and quote unquote playoff Jimmy or, whatever. But they do play a very, very different style than the Lakers. I was thinking about this. I was wondering, all right, on defense, how different is it going to be? Because we got to see players like Nas Reed, Julius Randle, two guys not known for their defense, kind of shine because they got to play in isolation against a Luka and against a LeBron. And that's not necessarily going to be the case in this Warrior series, at least not in my opinion. They're not going to be able to just match up against Jimmy Butler going one-on-one. Like, they're going to be moving the ball around. They're going to have to be chasing around the perimeter. And off ball, I think that's kind of the weakness for, quite frankly, a lot of the Wolves, primary, you should think about their strong defenders. Like, yeah, Jaden's probably the best, but you think about like Ant, Julius, Nas, like those guys aren't great off-ball defenders. Like, traditionally, now they've been pretty locked in. I think this time that they have off is great, that they can start preparing for themselves and getting their legs fresh. And, I'm sure that they've been studying. I know Chris Finch said that he's been looking at, while they've been figuring out, waiting to see who they're going to play in the second round, similarities between the two teams and, what themes can you prepare for. And I think, a lot of off-ball movement is a big piece of it. And so I'm hoping that they come ready to fight and to move, and their legs, like, you can't fall asleep against this Warriors team. I mean, some of the questions I have on here is really going to be, how much can the Wolves continue to stay locked in and not blame it on like, oh, yeah, we haven't played this Warriors team in the playoffs before. Weren't really ready for Steph going off. Like, no, you can't have that. Like, you need to be locked in and ready.
Yeah, it's going to be, let's kind of dive into some of let's start with the toxic storylines up top. The main one to me is like the whole Draymond Rudy thing. And really, probably Draymond's just kind of antics. He had another one in Game 7 where he just flailing and hitting people in the face. And It's just like, it's going to be a frustration, I think, from the Wolves' perspective of just like the stuff he gets away with flagrants and technicals. And it's kind of insane that like Anthony Edwards has more technicals than Draymond this season. Like, that's just insane. So I'm prepared for that. I do thinking about the Draymond Rudy thing, I think one thing Rudy did very well was in the first round was not make it about Luka, not make it about, just play his game, be solid, let the results on the floor speak for themselves. And obviously through the first 4 games, that didn't look great for Rudy, although the Wolves were up 3-1. But and then the Game 5 is the huge exclamation point. And I think one key for the series is Rudy doing that again, not 20 whatever points and 20 whatever rebounds, but not making the series about him and Draymond, or not letting Draymond kind of get into it. If Draymond wants to talk his crap and make it all about himself and make it all about, like, let him. And just let I know, and just let like the actual results and the play on the court speak for itself. Because if Rudy dominates like he did Game 5, which the matchups wise is there for him. The biggest player they play is Draymond, and then they're playing primarily Jimmy at the 4, and then they bring Kuminga off the bench. Like they don't really have someone with the 5-man line that they want to play, which is their main 3 guys, Jimmy, Steph, and Draymond, and then working in 2 of Buddy Hield, Podziemski, and Gary Payton. Like they don't have the size to take care of Rudy, and offensively that'll be a challenge because I think the Warriors defense is going to look night and day different than the Lakers defense. There isn't it like you said, they're not going to give up switches that easily. They don't have a defender that is to the Luka level of you can just run right by him. Obviously, like you'll try to attack Curry, but I don't think like going matchup hunting against Curry is like the same way going matchup hunting against Rudy isn't like a long term. It's profitable in a possession here, possession there, but like it shouldn't be the staple of your offense is going at him or whatever. But Rudy will be big, and I just think like if they let Draymond kind of drag them down into the mud with him, that's going to be advantage Warriors. But if the Wolves and Rudy specifically, if they can just kind of stay above it and play their games, I just kind of think that if the Wolves, we'll talk about all the other matchups, but if the Wolves just play their game, there's not going to be enough answers for the Warriors, in my opinion.
There are a couple of things I want to mention there. I mean, you talk about attacking Steph on D. I do think that is important. I mean, sometimes your best offense is the best defense, and you have to make Steph Curry play defense. But I will say
I more meant like it's not like Luka.
Yeah, it's not Austin Reeves, exactly. And that's what I was going to say is that Steph Curry is a lot better defender than a lot of people give him credit for. I mean, he's not going to make any all-defensive teams, but he's solid, and he is active with his hands, and, he tries to stand his ground as much as he can. You can't
Mike
say the
is
same
probably
for the
a
other
good
two.
Defensive comparison for him. Like there's always size issues, but yeah,
they're feisty. Yeah, like they're fighters, right? They'll fight for it. So so that said, though, I mean, I think when we get back to Draymond, I mean, the one question I have written down about Draymond is what idiotic thing is he going to do? Because it's going to come, whether it's tripping someone, whether it's kicking someone, whether it's hitting someone in the face, or whatever dirty thing that he's going to do. He's going to do multiple things. My worry, and specifically to Rudy, is because most likely, like you said, it's going to go back. He's going to target Rudy because Rudy is known to respond kind of poorly in these situations. You even think about this season. Remember early in the season when Christian Braun dunked on him, and then Rudy just somehow like didn't get more than just attack for smacking him in the face like right after that for getting for when he was just kind of like shit talking him in his face afterwards. And so like I could totally see Rudy trying to like puff his chest out, or like he's in a situation where he's in the short roll and he has Rudy in front of him. It's like, all right, man, you know what the right pass is, like kick it to the corner. Instead he's gonna maybe try and do something dumb where Rudy's gonna try and prove himself. Like, let me go at Draymond, where it's like, no, don't play that game. Not against Draymond. As much as I hate Draymond, I don't like him as a person, as a basketball player. He's someone that's very good at defenses, especially in the post. And so, Rudy, that is not your strong suit. So finish your lobs, clean up, make them work, but like don't go at Draymond. I think that's something that the Wolves collectively have to think about. Like, oh well, okay, Ant, you have Draymond in isolation. Don't just like play one-on-one. Like move the ball. Like put it to where there's like an advantage situation instead. And so when you talk about Rudy, though, the one note I have about Rudy is, will Game 5 Rudy be there from the jump? So similar to you said, I'm not expecting, 27-20, whatever. But he did average 34.9 minutes in the 4 games the Wolves played the Warriors this season. So he's proving that he can stay on the court. It's not a matter of, oh, well, Rudy's going to get, bumped off the court because he can't, play in space or whatever the case is. I think he absolutely can. It's just whether or not he's going to be able to assert himself by playing, like you said, smart basketball. Don't turn into a pissing contest of like, all right, I'm going to show them. I'm going to go for 27-20 immediately. It's like, nah, man, like go where the openings are and play your game.
Yeah, and I do think, especially defensively, I do think that this is a good defensive matchup for Rudy. And it's going, the narrative again coming into the series is, well, Golden State's going to try to play Rudy off the court. No team ever does that. That never happens. It has not happened one time in the Minnesota. The offense, when Rudy doesn't close, it's because of the offensive end of the court. There's very rarely been a time where Rudy's been on the court and like their defense hasn't been good enough. Right. And I just think like Draymond's kind of the perfect type of player for Rudy to guard. He obviously does shoot threes, and to the extent Rudy will guard threes. Like it's not like he's done a better job of like getting out there, but like ultimately if you're if the Warriors offense is Draymond taking threes over like a late closeout Rudy, great. Like that's just great for the Wolves. So I do think defensively this would be a great series for Rudy potentially, and then offensively, I'm curious to see what coverage they throw at Ant, because if they are kind of bringing two to the ball more than the Lakers did, that leaves open like the possibility of the Rudy short rolls. We didn't really have to see that in the Lakers series, but if they're short rolling, and like Rudy's got the ball and it's 4-on-3, can Rudy consistently make that play? He's done a good job at that on the whole this year, but it's a new matchup every day. Obviously, biggest thing is just don't let Draymond drag you down into the mud. There's a classic line. It's like, a pig will drag you down into the mud and beat you with experience. And I don't mean to call him a pig, obviously, but like that as the saying goes, like they're far more experienced. Draymond specifically is at like winning in that sort of dirty style. So if the Wolves can just play their way and kind of stay out of that, I think it's for the best.
Yeah, I think, you hit it on the head there. There's just so many things that are going to be interesting to watch. I'm not going to get ahead of myself and say the Wolves will absolutely win the series, but if in the case of the Wolves do beat the Warriors and eliminate them, how ready are you, Ryan, to hear Draymond say that, hey, I motivated Rudy, and if it wasn't for me, Rudy wouldn't have played as aggressively as he was. How ready are you for all the critics to come out and say like, oh, well, the only reason the Wolves won is because Steph and Jimmy were injured. The only reason they beat LeBron and Luka is because they were injured. Like, I can already hear that right now.
I completely turn that crap off. And to be honest, the two league partners right now, ESPN and TNT, they do a very poor job covering this league. And I'm very excited for the NBC and Amazon. Like, yeah. Amazon is in many ways the evil empire in terms of like regular day commerce. But in this case, they're the savior of discourse, because Draymond is such a poster boy for like the dumb jock energy of coverage. So yeah, I'm hoping the Wolves can send him home early, although that just probably means TNT will pick him up for the West Finals anyway. So,
well, if y'all remember correctly, I mean, Draymond was very much not welcome in Minnesota by the time that the Western Conference Finals were going through. Where I was there for one of those closeout games, and people were smack talking him the whole time he was there. And I think at some point they just kind of pulled him from some of the Wolves broadcasts, whether or not he was available or maybe he was sick or whatever. But yeah, it was just
my conspiracy theory is that the Wolves basically requested TNT to tear him off the set because like it just wasn't. It was such a clear vendetta he had against.
Yeah, it was just a personal thing. Yeah.
Well, speaking of personal, the other quote-unquote toxic storyline, the general soreness himself, Jimmy Butler, returns to Target Center for the first time since November of 2021. He's been dipping out of Target Center ever since then. The interesting thing to me here is there's not a person inside of the basketball organization that was here back when Jimmy was here. Not a single player, not a single coach, and the front office is totally turned over.
And the owner,
I guess Glenn, who is shortly out the door as well, would be the only person. And so from the player standpoint, and Mike kind of talked about this in practice, like they haven't really been thinking about it. It's not like the closest thing has been a few years ago. Ant like covered up Ant was helping Cat kind of work through it as they played Jimmy, and like someone asked him asked Cat a question about the Jimmy of it all, and Ant was quick to like kind of strike that down as like, no, it's just basketball or whatever. So maybe there's a motivation for Ant to save or to avenge his brother Carl, but I don't, from the player's perspective, I don't think it's going to play into it much positively or negatively. Where it will affect things is the crowd, because the crowd, they remember. The North remembers. It's not. I'm curious to know if the players truly understand how negative the crowd is going to be towards Jimmy. I plan to try to ask at least someone about it in the pregame locker room. Just like, do you guys realize that it's going to be a heavy amount of boos coming from the crowd? And I just wonder how much. I don't see Jimmy as as either really being like playing poorly because of it, and I also don't really see him as like like taking over the game because of the crowd either. I just think it's more of like it's more of a storyline for like people like you and me in the fans.
Yeah, it's very much Jimmy versus the Timberwolves fans. It is anything. I mean, when you talk about Jimmy's, is there any connection with any of the team here? I mean, I think the last time he played here, so that was November 24th, 2021. That was 1,260 days ago that he didn't play in Target Center. That is not a coincidence, in my opinion. I will go down thinking that Jimmy is just like not terrified to play at Target Center, but doesn't want to give the fans the satisfaction knowing that he can lose at Target Center, because when they played that game, that was on Thanksgiving 2021, when they lost that game, there's at one point where second half, Ant has the ball, he gets called, I think, for offensive foul or travel, and Jimmy tries to grabs the ball out of Ant's hands, and then Ant just like kind of shoves him from behind, and then Jimmy kind of tries to go like face to face to him, and then they get separated. Nothing really came of that. I mean, that happens, every single basketball game, but I posted that on the Blue Sky account because, again, it is something where I think as much as aware as Ant is about his teammates, I think he's aware of the fan base as well too. And I think that he wants to get the fans like into it. I think he's smart enough to know that. And so I think, he's not necessarily going to feed into it by, doing something crazy against Jimmy, but I do think that he's going to try and, put a little to his game when, he's hearing the boos and Jimmy, or Jimmy's trash talking the crowd, or whatever the case is. I could very much see Jimmy trash talking the crowd, say he hits a big, bucket, or, he scores an and one. I could see him flexing into the crowd to like a ton of boos. Now, whether or not that turns into a real storyline, I don't think so, but it is going to be interesting. I mean, talking about the basketball side of it, I was listening to Zach Lowe's new podcast, and he was saying that the Warriors' only chance, or he feels like their best chance at beating the Wolves, is if, quote unquote, playoff Jimmy shows up and he's able to bully guys like Mike Conley, bully guys like Nikhil, bully guys like Dante, where he can really go off and average close to about 25 to 30 points a game. And at this point, I mean, I did not watch a lot of Heat games, nor did he play in a lot of Heat games this season. But I watched enough Warrior games to see kind of how he's getting his points. And he does annoyingly hit those. I call them like DeMar DeRozan three-pointers, where it's like Jimmy's not a three-point shooter, but at the end of the shot clock when he has it and he chucks one up, they go in and you're like, all right, come on. Like Jimmy does hit those. He hit quite a few of them in the Rockets series as well too. So, but how he's primarily going to score his points will be by, cutting off the ball, finishing plays in traffic. He's going to do this little like scream when he goes up for a layup, and do a plank in midair to do a V set to try and draw a foul every time. And so the Wolves have to be smart about that, not play into it, and know that, hey, look, he's going to get calls. Don't get suckered into him. Don't bite on those pump fakes, because that's what he wants. He's going to try and score the majority of his points at the free throw line. And so I personally don't think that guys like Nikhil and Dante are going to get bullied by him. He's going to have some strength advantage, a little bit of height advantage, but I mean, they're feisty. They're not going to let him just back them down the whole time. So I feel a lot more comfortable about him backing those guys down than say like, Fred VanVleet, I think Amin Thompson, Darren Brooks. I mean, they're good defenders, but I mean, even some of their big guys aren't really like true big guys that he was attacking the paint with.
Yeah, and my thing would be, I'm not sure those guys are going to be guarding Jimmy. I think Randall is going to be the main. He's going to guard him pretty much every minute. The only way that Randall wouldn't be the primary assignment would be if the Warriors go big and they're playing like Jimmy, Draymond, and Looney like together.
Post or Looney, yeah.
Yeah, or Post. And I just don't. Even then, I would like if Post is in the game.
You put
I
Mike
would
on him, yeah.
like have fun. Like they're not gonna like Post's offensive game. I think is like more shooting. So you can put a guard on him, and I don't like you'll end up, especially if Rudy is like lurking in the paint. I think you'll be fine with that.
Quentin Post is a functional Maxi Kleber, is what he is.
Right, and he played 3 minutes in Game 7, and that was even with Gary Payton out with an illness. Like, I don't. To me, it's like that's another one of those guys. If Quentin Post is playing lots of minutes, that's probably advantage Wolves. But I think Randall is like a perfect matchup for Jimmy at this point in Jimmy's career. Like, I don't think he like has the speed, like, because Randall's more of a traditional 4, and Jimmy used to play shooting guard back in the day, but it's certainly been a 3 for a few years now. And obviously the Warriors play him as their second biggest guy in the court. I don't think he's like the type to like blow by Randall. So I just think that like Randall's a perfect spot for him defensively. And I also just don't think the Warriors are going to go big. They had the chance to do that all series against, as as Steven Adams was guarding a million offensive rebounds, they had a chance to go big, and they didn't. They stuck with their small lineup, and I'd guess they'd do the same thing here. I just don't think that they're going to play Kevon Looney like this starter level role. I think they're going to try to stick with what they've got, and I think we've seen what the Wolves can do against a smaller lineup. They're able to defend it just fine, and when Rudy's playing well, especially, they're able to punish that.
Yeah. I think, there has to be a commitment from Julius to be active on the defensive end, So, if Jimmy, I don't think the Warriors are going to run an offense where they're just like, all right, Jimmy, go get a bucket, right? I mean, other than, occasional play here and there. And so, with that said, I mean, I mentioned it earlier too. I mean, Julius has to be committed, on the defensive end, like he's shown it in the first round series. And so, if he does have to move around the offense on the defensive end off the ball, I really want to see how he's going to match up well in there. But I think on offense is where Julius Randle is really going to be able to feed. To feed and eat off the Warriors defense, because I mean, yeah, sure, they could try to stick Draymond on him, but then like who's covering up Rudy on like the offensive glass, right? Like does that allow for Ant to be able to get loose? Because I mean, Jimmy's going to be on Ant, sure, right? I mean, it's like Jimmy and Draymond cannot guard 3 or 4 guys on the court. Like I know Draymond, you can account for 1.5 maybe in the paint, but yeah, I mean, like Jimmy's not the same Jimmy back in the day where he's just like all over the court and being able to defend someone as physical and as strong and as fast as an Ant. And I think even Jaden, as we kind of go down the rows here, Jaden should have a very, very advantageous spot again, as he did, and he should be able to be very, very able to just pick on these open situations where he's going to have a Pajinski on him. He's going to have a Buddy Hield on him. You have to corner crash and continue playing as, hey, look, I'm probably the tallest guy on the court outside of Rudy right now, and go and get those, because I think he is due for a really big series here. Again, like he proved in round 1.
Yeah, and the foul trouble thing isn't nearly as, that was always, with guarding Luka, that was always going to be like keeping him out of foul trouble. And we saw that in game 5 where he wasn't able to stay on the court. It's not really that same type of issue here. I am curious who the Wolves guard Stephen Curry with. I think that'll be a big thing. The most obvious one is Jaden McDaniels. I think that would be the most, just that's your best defender. So let's stick him on the best offensive player. That would put Ant on Pods or probably Pajemski, and then Mike could guard Gary Payton or Buddy Hield, or flip those. But I don't know. I think that's fine. I wouldn't have any problems with that. And then you got Draymond on Rudy and Randall to guard Butler. But I do think they're going to throw a lot of different defenders at Curry. They might start with McDaniels, but then Mike will get a turn, and Nikhil will get a turn, and Dante will get a turn. The one guy I think they'll try to limit the defensive possessions is Ant with Curry. Energy-wise, I don't think they want him chasing around screens.
Yeah. I think, as far as Ant's role in this is that, yeah, he has to understand, like, he can't take it personal, like you said. Just like they can't take it personal with, like, the Rudy versus Draymond. They can't take it personal where Ant's like, all right, well, it's me versus Steph. He has to be able to stay committed to it and know that, yeah, Steph's not a guy that you're ever going to completely shut off the water to. I mean, I think you saw the Warriors get so many wide open 3-pointers because they were really, really committing to Steph. Like they were just throwing everything they can at Steph, and they were doubling him. They were playing physical with them. And to be honest, I mean, I was impressed with the way that the Rockets were trying to handle Steph in terms of like not allowing him to, get free and go off for like a huge game. And, it wasn't until like the end of game 7 where Steph really kind of got a lot of his points like later in that second half. So, yeah, I think it's going to have to be a team effort. And I think luckily for the Wolves, we got the advantageous matchup, which is that the Wolves do have multiple perimeter guys, whether it's, your Jaden starting there, and then you have Mike that could chase him around. You have Dante, you have Nikhil, and even say they all get into foul trouble somehow, you can dust off your Jalen Clark. I'm not saying that Jalen Clark's going to play a huge amount of minutes, but it's time to dust off Clark County for a little bit. Can he go in there and kind of like, play some minutes? I mean, we saw him play well against the Thunder in the regular season when he got some extended run. So, that's like a break in case of emergency type situation, but there are bodies there, and you can't let Steph just rest. You always have to keep a guy on him.
Yeah, I agree with you. I'm not sure they'll, like, Clark or Shannon will be a big part of this series, but certainly in foul trouble, I think Shannon might be the guy. They've kind of showed that in the Lakers series, if that's the guy they like most. I think it'll be the kind of the same 8 guys that we've seen. I think those 8 guys have shown The ability, like, that's just the biggest thing when they're playing against another team that doesn't have a ton of depth, is that the Warriors can, or the Wolves can go big, they can go small, they have just so many different types of lineup combinations. And if the Warriors are like unable or unwilling to like go big to match at parts of the series, I just think like that depth and that flexibility is just so big in any playoff series, especially if you're trying to win like multiple series in a row.
Yeah, when you're talking about depth, I mean, we brought up Pods a couple times. We talked about a little bit about Buddy Hield, but I mean, my questions are these guys is how reliable are their 3-point shooting? Is their 3-point shooting going to be? Now, how quick will Steve Kerr be to pull the plug on Buddy or Pods when they're not playing well? Because it's inevitable that they will. I mean, Buddy Hield set an NBA record 9 3-pointers made in a game 7. That's like an NBA record there. And like we know that Buddy Hield, I mean, he's a 3-point contest winner. He's a very capable 3-point shooter, like we've seen his time in Sacramento and also in Indiana. But this is not the guy that should be. Shouldn't be doing more than like 4 or 5 threes on volume takes a game at best. So hitting 9 was quite a bit of an outlier. And then with Brandon Pajinski as well too. That's someone that I won't say his name, but there's a very noted Timberwolves insider that is not a fan of Pods in his game. And so outside of Pods going off for 6 for 11 in game 4, he shot 9 of 33 in the rest of the series. And so both of them can be, poor shooters at times, especially Pods. And I think, when that's the case, it's like, all right, well, then they really don't have anything. Because, I mean, other than Pods trying to draw charges, neither of them really offer too much on the defensive end.
Yeah, the Warriors have a lot of like social shooters, like Jimmy, Pods, Peyton. Like they have a lot
Rudy,
of guys that like Moody that can make shots, and certainly like Pods can hit a bunch in a row if they. But ultimately, like on volume, they're not great 3-point shooters, and they're like the Warriors field goal percentage. They're not a high field goal percentage team. So I think that's like benefit of the Wolves defense. Obviously, they got the greatest shooter of all time on their team, and that covers up a lot of issues. But they don't have like the kick out threes, and Buddy's a great shooter too. So they do have some shooting, but like the Wolves' worst shooter, not like setting Rudy aside, like is like who? Like Jaden, obviously. Jaden's the only one that falls into that social shooter category, and it feels like half the Warriors rotation falls into that. So shooting variance was kind of a big thing in the Lakers series. Honestly, the game 1 was the only one the Wolves really shot well, and especially obviously. I don't know if you saw the Boston broke their record for most missed threes in a
45.
Yeah, so hey, the Wolves were able to do it with a win. Boston came up short. Very quick aside, why does Boston like their offense just devolves into crap? Like they're just Tatum isoing crappy offense. Whatever, leave that aside. But the biggest swing point, obviously, with any Wolves series is Anthony Edwards. It's another series where I would, in my opinion, like the Warriors don't really have a great answer for Ant. I mean, if they're not going to start Gary Payton, which I do believe he was just out with an illness for game 7, but like I would assume Gary Payton will get that assignment, which solid defender, but like it's just another team that if they're going to play small, that just plays right into Ant's hands. He's going to be able to get into the paint, and there's just not going to be anyone waiting for him. And that when Ant struggled, like that's been like a big traditional center has been one of the biggest reasons why. And obviously Draymond's a fantastic defender, but not like in a true, like if Ant's got by his man and he's going downhill, he's not like a wall up type of big rim protecting center in the same way that like if they played the Clippers, like Zubac would it be that type of matchup. Obviously like Rudy on the Wolves or like Chet on the Thunder. Like those type of guys are kind of more the matchup problems for Ant, where the Warriors just don't really have that. And their defense is going to be light years better than the Lakers, who, especially that game 5, were pretty much just atrocious. But there's still opportunities for Ant to, I mean, this whole series, like it will with every playoff series, will be Ant's ability to solve the puzzle that the opposing defense throws at him. If they bring 2 to the ball, he's going to have to get off it and make the right pass. If they're going under, he's going to step into threes and have to make them. If they're running a more simple pick and roll coverage, he's got to go by his guy and get to the paint and either make a layup or pass out to a shooter. And the one reason why I'd be bullish about the series for the Wolves is that Ant's just shown the ability to solve those problems when they presented to him. So, what do you think about like Ant's ability to kind of, or maybe the Warriors' ability to try to slow down Ant?
Yeah, it's can Ant keep playing team basketball? That tends to be the biggest question, I think, even of the entire season for the Wolves. Is obviously we've seen what Ant can do when he's in takeover mode and he wants to score 50 points, and he can do that. But I mean, that's not oftentimes playing within the team concept. And so, I think Ant really has to continue to keep his head about him. But I think this is the whole theme of the entire series. Is like, can the Wolves keep their head? Because if the Wolves keep their head, there's no reason that they should lose this series. And so, I think the Warriors, like you said, their defense has been really, really good, especially since the Jimmy trade. But their team is filled with a lot of one-way players, so it has to come with a price. Like if they're going to trot out Gary Payton and Draymond and I don't want to say throw in Kaminga, I don't know, whoever else, or Quentin Post even. Like these are one-way players where it's like they're not going to be able to do anything on the other end of the court. So you have to like everything comes with a price. So if GP2's gonna be out there, GP2 better be shooting a lot of threes. You got to limit him from catching, wide open lobs in the paint. You got to limit them in transition. I think Finch said that a lot as well too, stopping them in transition. And so I think, it's a little bit of, again, I'll say this again. Sometimes their best offense might be their best defense, where it's like, if they can make the Warriors take tough shots, get out in transition before that defense sets, I mean, that might be their best offense right there. Just, stopping the Warriors and getting down the other way. So they got to do it on both sides. I think if they lock in, I don't think that there's any advantageous matchup for Ant, just like there wasn't against the Lakers.
Yep, I agree. We can move on to the bench, Wolves bench. Which of these three players either do you want to talk about or kind of have like a potential big role between Naz, Dante, and Nikhil?
So Naz Reid is a guy that we haven't talked about yet, and the question that I wrote down for Naz is, will Naz continue to haunt the Warriors? Because contrary to some of the Lakers media members and their belief, Naz actually has played really great against Golden State in his career. In all the games against all their 2019s, Naz Reid scores the fourth most amount of points per game against the Warriors than he does anyone else. He grabs the second most amount of rebounds per game against any other team outside of the Warriors, the second most there. So I think Naz will be key for this. And I think a lot of times we'll remember Naz Reid in his best spurts because as a fan favorite, I mean, that's what you do. You remember him for his best moments. And sometimes you forget about like the not so great moments. And Naz was really good for, I mean, you could say maybe like 1.5 games or maybe 2.5 games of that Lakers series where, he had a pretty poor shooting series outside of game one. And then he had that great game 4, fourth quarter. And, he wasn't great outside of that. And so I think Naz is due for a bounce back. So I think that Naz is the biggest, if we're talking, if you have to pick one X factor on the Wolves, for me, it's going to be Naz Reid. Because again, I think he also will be a mismatch because he's a guy that can bring Draymond out. He's a guy that can take Jimmy inside. Like he's a dude that is super flexible, and I really like what we're gonna get from Naz this series because he has proved that he likes playing in Golden State and he's finished him off before in big games.
Yeah, I agree. I'm excited to see what Naz is able to do. He honestly didn't. I would say overall, Naz had a bad Lakers series.
Right.
Game 1 was a solid game for everyone. Game 2 was a crap show for everyone. And he really he had 2 solid quarters the rest of the series. Now they were crucial quarters. The final quarter of both games 3 and 4. But he was basically no show in game 5, and I think they'll need him again here to, at the very least, provide some solid fourth quarters. But ideally, put together full games that are great because that's another guy off the bench that is just another cog that if it isn't a Randall series, they can throw Naz in there. If it's not a Gobert series, that like they have options to go with. They could play Naz at center without Julius. Like the Wolves just have options, and Naz is such a big part of that. And his shooting obviously is, especially when he's playing the 4, his defense next to Gobert is like just phenomenal. And then the shooting is just like another weapon. The guy I think I would watch out for is Dante, just because he shot so darn poorly in the Lakers series. And to me, like, they were open shots. It was just like a mental thing. I mean, everyone in game 5 was struggling to make anything. But I think Dante, if he can just start raining in threes, that'll be a that'll be another point in the Wolves' favor because, I mean, I don't expect Dante to be in a 3-point shooting slump for long.
Yeah. I mean, I wrote this as my question: is Dante the key to the series with this insider knowledge of Golden State? And I think Finch was asked that today in practice media availability, where he said that, yeah, I mean, it is. Someone asked, is it helpful to have someone like Dante who's been on the Warriors that kind of knows how they operate? And he said, yeah, absolutely. You know, and I think, yeah, he doesn't know the secret tunnels of Chase Center to go and slap someone after the game. But I do think that Dante will like be able to bring some knowledge to the table, and I think his familiarity with playing in Chase Center, or not Chase Center, Golden Ones. No, yeah, Chase Center. Yeah, I've got my Northern California Bank Arenas mixed
Yeah.
up. Where I do think he's familiar playing in there, and yeah, he's due for a bounce back as well too. I think Dante less so, but definitely for Nas, I'm gonna bang that drum again. Where it's like, can you keep your head about you? Because again, we saw Nas kind of lose his shit a little too easily in that Lakers series, whether it's the refs or whatever the case may be, and that takes him out of those games. And so he has to stay locked in. I think Dante has to keep shooting. I think like Dante has proven, even in just his one season with the Timberwolves, that he's not going to be shy about like, oh, I'm going to slump. Like he's going to bomb an open 30-footer if he's available, or he's going to catch it off the offensive rebound with the guy screaming at him. He's going to shoot a tough jumper. He's proven that. And so, yeah, I think both of those guys, again, that's again, do the Warriors have a guy like Naz Reid or Donte DiVincenzo coming off the bench? Like, not even close. Not even close. I think that depth has to shine.
Yeah. And it's just with all the, I mean, it's pretty much with all the players. Like, I just don't think the Wolves' 3-point shooting struggles will last. Maybe I'm just overreacting to Game 5 and they had a better shooting series than I remember, but pretty much everyone I can think of had a poor shooting series. Nikhil would be the last guy we haven't really talked about. Another guy that just didn't shoot the ball very well, and I think this is a series for him to shine again just because I think Curry is a really good matchup for him. Like the chase around Curry off ball, I think is like one place where his defense can shine. I don't know. I doubt they'll want to like close games with him late in the game, but I do see like defensively, to be honest, every minute Nikhil is on the court while Curry is on the court, I would have Nikhil chasing around Curry. That'd be my thing. Even if Jaden is out there and that's like what they go with primarily on Curry, I think having Nikhil guard Curry and allowing Jaden to go off ball, which he's also been very good at defensively this season, would be advantageous for the Wolves. Did you have something written down for Nikhil?
Yeah, I mean, I wrote Nikhil for how big of a role will he have on both ends of the court. So his two-way ability is huge for the Wolves, and so he has to prove that he can knock down a shot to be able to stay on the court, because as we saw, the shot kind of abandoned him. He didn't get as many minutes down the stretch. But Nikhil, I think this is no surprise to anyone. He is the best screen navigator on the team. And that's, with all due respect to Mike Conley and to Dante and to Jaden, like that's just a skill. That's a skill that Nikhil has really mastered. And I'm willing to bet that Nikhil is going to average at least I'll say at least 0.8 offensive fouls drawn off illegal screens, like for the series. I would say just about one illegal screen drawn, because Draymond's going to set an illegal screen. Nikhil's going to go flying around it. He's going to force the refs to make a call on that. And I do think that's going to be extremely valuable. So yeah, I love Nikhil in this matchup. I do love him as a primary on Steph. And I think that's the beauty of it, where it's like, oh, I think Nikhil would be great. You know what? I think Jaden would be great. I also kind of like Mike on Steph too, where it's like you have these options.
Yeah, and it's not to say like anyone is going to shut down Steph in the same way no one's going to shut down Ant. He's going to get his shots, and there's going to be times where it's just like you shrug your shoulders and go, he hit that. What can you do? Like you talk about like the illegal screens. That's going to be kind of the officiating, kind of push and pull of the series. Basically, the Warriors built a dynasty off of moving screens, yes, and teams have played on the flip side. Teams basically just grab and hold Curry the entire playoffs, and the refs largely don't call it. So like that's the two sides of like the Warriors are going to complain about, as they should, about people holding and grabbing Curry and apparently hitting his thumb. Just very weird that they made that such a big deal. And then the other teams are going to complain about the moving screens probably up and down the roster. Although I feel like Looney won't play as much as he had, and I feel like Looney was like a big moving screen guy.
Yeah. Yeah, but no one's better than Draymond at those, so that's like in stone.
Right, and he's like, to be fair, obviously to Draymond, he's very good at the legal screens too. Like I mean, Draymond was always the player when we talk about like the Rudy short roll. That was the other thing they built their dynasty on, was because you have to blitz Steph. Like the one thing the Wolves can't do is like just drop Rudy in pick and roll coverage. That'll just be like buckets for Steph. But Draymond on the short roll was obviously like just an absolute weapon, where he would always find the right pass or like a fake pass to get a wide open layup. So we'll see if the Wolves are able to kind of limit that. They've been a pretty good team at like rotating behind the play, and the Warriors usually necessitate some of that with Curry.
Yeah, I will urge Wolves fans, and again, I say this of 30 plus years of watching basketball pretty religiously here. It's like, do your best. I know I won't be perfect at it either, but I will tell you all, please do your best to not overreact to the Wolves getting into foul trouble, to reacting to Steph Curry falling down and getting some crappy foul against him. Like, he is going to do that. For all intents and purposes, Steph has deserved the right to get that superstar call, whether or not we like it, whether or not it's right or not. Steph is going to get that call. Jimmy is going to get a weird whistle by when he goes up and he screams. Like, things like that are going to happen. You can't overreact. Like, oh my gosh, like Steph is the biggest flopper in the league. I mean, like you said, he's getting hit on a lot of these when he's running around with the ball. He is getting touched a lot on his three-pointer attempts. I mean, I remember there was one in the Rocket series. Fred VanVleet was literally in Steph's pocket. He was like holding onto his hip, and Steph fired up a three. They didn't call it, and it goes in anyways. It's like, he's getting fouled on these, all right? So it's like, yeah, you could be a homer. You can root for the Wolves like I do as well too, but also understand, like, don't think that this is the end of the world, and that, it's going to be one play, and you have to take a play at a time, and I hope the Wolves do that.
Yeah, and the Wolves should try to kind of play within the margins of the rule book, right? Like, they should be trying to hold Steph, and if they end up calling it, you can adjust from there, but like, it's a good strategy because it slows him down. But Leo, did you have any more notes you wanted to go over before we kind of move into our prediction segment?
I think we covered pretty much a lot of it. The last note that I think probably doesn't need to talk about too much is, has Jonathan Kuminga played one of his last games in a Warriors jersey? Like, how many more games does he have there? Because I know that he barely played in the Houston series, and to be fair, I mean, he's been in the doghouse for a long time. Especially once they got Jimmy, they kind of had no need for Kuminga, who was also, I think, injured too a little bit. And he's a guy that I think Wolves fans often look at like, hey, that was part of that D'Lo Andrew Wiggins trade. Like, Kuminga was the Wolves pick. And so it's kind of funny because that, you Wolves fans have been able to see the ups and downs with like Kuminga, like, oh my God, this guy looks amazing. Like, earlier this season when he played against us, he was going off. He was making everything. He looked like freaking, a prime Jimmy Butler out there, shooting mid-range shots and locking down on D. But then all of a sudden he's not playing any more minutes, and like, he very well could be on his way out this offseason. So that's the last note that I had as far as any other players.
Yeah, it seems like Kuminga has been more or less kind of mothballed by Kerr, whether that's fair or not. I don't expect. It's like almost like if Kuminga is playing a big role in the series, it's like that's because something has gone wrong on Golden State's initial game plan. So, but yeah, let's wrap it up with series predictions. I've been kind of thinking it in my head. Obviously, I picked Lakers in 7. Last round, I was obviously dead wrong. And I specifically pointed to clutch time as the reason why I wasn't confident in the Wolves, and that was the biggest reason why they won the series, was because games 3 and 4 were close, and the Wolves were able to overcome the close game. In this series, I am far more confident in the Wolves' ability to win. Just because they overcame the clutch stuff one time, it doesn't necessarily guarantee that they will the next time. But I do just think, like, with more film sessions and more time, that the risks of clutch time kind of go down for the Wolves. And I just think they have a more talented team. They have a deeper team. They have more options. I think Ant is the best player in the series. And obviously, if he's not that, if it's Curry, then the Wolves are going to have trouble. I've been honestly waffling between Wolves in 5 and Wolves in 6. And I'm going to go Wolves in 6 just to kind of give deference to the talent, like basically the Steph Curry of it all. But I view this as, if the Wolves play their game, they're going to be able to win this, not handily, but it'll be theirs to win. And I would be a little bit surprised if the Warriors were able to win the series, but I guess I would have said that against Dallas last year. So anything can happen. Leo, what do you think?
Welcome to the resistance, Ryan. I'm glad to see you on our side for this one. So last series against the Lakers, I did predict the Wolves in 5. I believe I said that they will steal one game in LA, win both at home, and put all the pressure on the Lakers for Game 5, which the Wolves will close out. And that's kind of how it played out. They stole the very first game, won both at home, and it was a very high pressure situation for the Lakers where they couldn't take advantage of 40 missed 3-pointers, and they lost in Game 5. So I'm going to keep it rolling here. I will also be predicting Wolves in 5, baby, just like Anthony Words. Wolves in 5, because I think, on the contrary, I guess my hot take is that this will not be a gentleman's sweep. I think this will be in, they called this in the No Dunks podcast part of The Athletic. They call it a douchebag sweep, where you let it's a reverse sweep, where you let the team win the first game and then you win the next 4 games. I think, contrary to popular belief, that, okay, well, the Warriors are going to be tired. The Wolves have all this time to rest and all that. I think that plays against the Wolves' advantage because, them having a lot of time to rest and prepare for the Lakers did work out, obviously, for the first series. But I think the Wolves have relaxed a little bit too much on their laurels. I could see them get a little bit too confident and overconfident coming in, seeing themselves as a favorite. I think the Warriors, yes, they'll be tired, but they're still kind of like they're in the schedule. They're in the zone. Like, they don't need to warm up anymore. They're already like on the verge of burning up. So I think their best shot will come in Game 1. Well, they'll steal one in Minnesota, and I think after that, the Wolves are going to go ahead and just take the next one at home, take both in Golden State, and finish out at home. So I'm predicting Wolves in 5 in the douchebag sweep.
That's funny. I do think like Game 1 will be. I know there's like a rust versus rest thing. I just think it's such a tough spot for Golden State. I do think the Wolves will win Game 1. If you want me to predict like a game, I will say Wolves Game 1, Warriors Game 2. Probably like every other team will win every other game until Game 6, where the Wolves, they just have a knack for ending these series on the road. So I just kind of think that they'll win Game 5 to go up 3-2, and instead of like in a spot where other teams would like potentially like not play their best and knowing that they have Game 7 in their pocket, I think the Wolves will end it in 6. And either way, it's a fantastic spot to get to the Western Conference Finals. I think we kind of all saw this not as a likely possibility at the start of the playoffs, but certainly like at least I saw like if they're able to beat the Lakers, like it does open up. Houston and Golden State were 2 teams that I would have felt confident in, especially for giving me the result of the Lakers series. And then, I mean, if we want to kind of think big picture, I would already call the Karl-Anthony Towns trade as a success. And it really does pain me to say that as like just a fan of Karl and the Knicks won tonight. So that was good for Cat. It was kind of it's been a classic Cat playoffs in that sense, but it's already been a success as much as it does like pain me to saying that, because I didn't like the trade at the time, and I didn't like the trade for basketball reasons at the time. And I think as the summer or as it's gone on, I've kind of flipped on that. But as like a fan, the fan in me has always never gotten behind it. And that's fine. Like, that's not me or any other fans like emotional attachment to a player is not a good reason to trade a player or not. Like, you got to make the best deal that you feel like they could. There was risks to it, and we saw those. We saw the amount of time it took this team to gel. It really took until the last. I mean, they were talented enough to kind of stay above water through the first 3 months of the season, but it took until like March for them to really play like their talent said they should, and they've been playing through it. And so you overcame the potential negatives, like the chemistry that was thrown off. They overcame that, and they're right back into a spot that I think all of us would have. I mean, like, I know that they're not the 3 seed, but they might as well be. Like, they have the 3 seed route. They have the home court advantage that the 3 seed would get. I guess if Denver wins, you wouldn't have home court, so that's different. But like, the Rudy trade is a success. The Cat trade is a success. Like, 2 trades that I think were widely panned when they happened, and certainly as the first few months after the seasons after those trades, it didn't look good. I mean, the game where Cat kicked our butts at Target Center was pretty brutal. Even if he wasn't, it was almost like worse that he wasn't willing to like rub it in people's faces. I'm sure he got plenty of like personal gratification off of it, but he wasn't willing to like really rub either like the Wolves front office's faces in it. You almost just like wanted him to do that so you could dislike him. And of course he, as he always did, took the high road. But yeah, I just think it's impressive that the Wolves were able to, they clearly, if the team isn't better, it's not significantly worse than the team that made the West Finals last year. They are now favored to make the West Finals again. And financially, they're in such a better spot going forward. As much as lame as it is to worry about the money and the second apron implications of it, just the reality of it is the Wolves are in a really good spot, not just now, a playoff series in, but for years to come.
Yeah, I agree with you on so many pieces of that. I mean, I think I will say I was a little triggered there, Ryan, when you said that, you can't just, worry about the personal attachment to a player when you trade. I mean, starting to sound a little bit more like Nico Harrison over there again, Ryan. No, no, I'm just kidding. It's definitely a thing where, I mean, I'm as big a Cap fan as they come. I mean, I've had a chance to meet the guy a couple times and, really share a moment with them. But, if you have to trade him anywhere, I mean, you trade him to a team that, just beat the Boston Celtics in the second round of the playoffs, game one. And
yeah, you didn't dump him in Siberia. Yeah.
Right, exactly. Yeah, he ended up in a good situation near his hometown, playing for the team that his dad almost got to play for, back then as well, too. And so, you can't be nothing but happy for him on that end. And on our end, yeah, it's worked out great. And so, to me, I said this many, many times in the last couple of episodes that to me, my championship was beating the Lakers just on a personal front. So, to me, it's already been a wildly successful season. We've made the playoffs. We beat the Lakers. We're in the second round, hopefully going to, further than that. But yeah, I mean, it's definitely been a huge success and we are set up for the future. So it's just one of those, like, I think oftentimes, I mean, sometimes part of maturity is about thinking things not just in binaries where it's like, oh, well, you're a winner or you're a loser. It's, oh, this team, it's either this team won or that team won, where it's like, no, like, both teams can win. Like, the Knicks could have won and, landing Cat and, landing in a better position than they were last season. And the Wolves could have won this trade as well, too. And, and the fans, don't always have to be suffering the losses of it. Like, you can enjoy, in Michael Scott's words, a win-win-win situation, right? So, yeah, it's really a great time to be a Wolves fan right now. And, who knows what happens this series. I'm not guaranteeing the Wolves will win. But you got to be happy with where they're at, happy with, what's set up here. It's probably going to be a very, very entertaining series either way, whether it ends in 5 or ends in 7, regardless of whoever wins the series.
Yeah, and I think what's important for me is, like, don't let the frustration of, say, the Dallas series from last year take away from your enjoyment of the two previous series. Because to me, it affects it very little. Obviously, we go on the win to the title. It retroactively makes everything more fun. I get it. But, like, and this is where the Wolves are at to me. Obviously, if they lose this Golden State series, that's going to stink. It's going to stick out as like a missed opportunity, similar to like the Dallas series was. But there's value in just winning series, and that was my point. Like when the season was at the lowest or at its most questionable, was that my goal was like, just get Anthony Edwards back into the playoffs, get him as many reps as you can, because we've already seen it. Like, every time he gets into the postseason, he figures out something new. He learns more. He's like, I think, like, the way he talks, I think people kind of maybe get the impression that he's like an airhead. I think the dude is really, really smart. Certainly basketball on the court smarts. He's a very, very smart dude and he soaks up a lot and he remembers a lot, and just getting him as many playoff reps as possible is going to, even if, I don't think it's worth like counting the Wolves out as like a championship team necessarily, but like, even if this is not a championship team, and I mean, just like, even if you have coin flip chance to win every series, you're at 12.5%. So just like the math of it all, 70 whatever or 80 whatever percent you're going to lose. But just getting him as much playoff rep is going to be like invaluable for whenever the Wolves have their peak version of the Anthony Edwards team. And they've done that. They have an opportunity to continue doing that. Obviously, if you get to the West Finals and OKC is there, that will end up like, that's a gigantic step up in quality of team. Which even if you end up losing that series, is invaluable experience. But like, going back to like the mentality of it all, like, I think just like try to enjoy it for what it is. And I'm probably talking to myself as much as anyone else. But like, just try to enjoy like the nerves is almost the fun of it all, right? Like, and it's possible to say that, like when Austin Reeves' 3 of Game 4 is in the air, and where you just want to throw up in your seat. But like that is the ride is the fun of it all. Obviously, you win a round, you win a title, and like that moment, the watching the clock hit zeros is fun. But like it's almost like doing these pods or talking about matchups, and like that's the fun of it. And win or lose, like you don't want to let a loss take that away, or like you said, like the enjoyment you got from beating the Lakers, like that's, even if they like belly up against the Warriors, like the Lakers, I mean, part of it would kind of be funny if they just, like, for your very individualistic like Laker hate, like if the Wolves went belly up, it'd almost be more funny. It's like, you guys lost to my crappy team.
That's right.
But I do think this is as far as like second round matchups go, and that's like why I like it's not that I love the Warriors matchups necessarily, but like as far as second round matchups go, you're doing all right. And like if they were to get the Thunder in the next round, obviously like that's a mammoth task. But like, I don't know, whoever you get to the West Finals against is almost certainly going to be a mammoth task. So I don't know, might as well be them.
Yeah, I'm so kind of zen about it, and I'll wrap up my thoughts here. But it's easy for me to say this because we just beat the Lakers. To me, we just beat the Lakers. But for me, still kind of in that mindset coming in, where it's like, you know what, man, like everything happens for a reason. I know that's super cliche, but I mean that is something that I believe in, is that there is this cosmic energy, and that when we're worried so much about like, oh man, I hope the Clippers beat the Clippers beat the Warriors in game 80 or in the play-in or game 82, whatever final game that was. And it's like, we really want that 4 or 5 seed. It's like we'd be staring down the barrel of the Thunder right now, if that was the case, right? So it's like that happened because we got to set ourselves up against the Lakers, and that resulted in this great outcome that we're at right now. And so believing in this and knowing that, yeah, if we lose game 1 or we lose the series or whatever the case is, like it's okay. Like that's going to be a part of it. And again, it's easy for me to say this as like I'm all smiles, and I still will be. But like, well, maybe if we lose, that is critical for us to determine who we want to keep in the offseason, who's going to be around with Ant, or Ant's going to learn a very important lesson from it. So yeah, there's nothing that can really harshen my vibe with it. I'm happy with whatever happens here, and just excited. Like you said, I'm trying to enjoy the ride, and I very much will.
And one kind of big picture thought, I tweeted it out, I don't know if you saw it. So 10K Takes is like a account, and it's not to come down on them too hard because they're primarily from what I can tell, like a hockey account, and the Wild lost in a pretty, not like in a particularly brutal way, but they were up 2-1 and had game 4. They were up, they had a goal advantage in game 4 in the final period, and so they were and then lost in overtime. So they were a goal away from going up 3-1 and then ended up losing the series. So like what I saw from them after the final game was like just all sorts of like, oh, Minnesota sports, oh, this is terrible. And they threw up the classic, like, since 1991, no Minnesota sports teams had won. And my first thought was like I get it. I get the Lynx aren't the most popular team in town. The 4 most popular teams in town are the 4 major med sports. I get it. But like, we don't have to pretend like the Lynx don't exist, especially if you're talking about like a curse or whatever it is. Like, so like curse are just inherently sexist. Like right. The idea of if curses exist, they are sexist. They only don't care about women, and they're only interested in tearing down men.
Right.
Okay. That's an interesting thought, but I get it. I get that like the Lynx, but the Lynx have been around longer than the Wild. And again, I get it. Like the hockey fan base has been around longer than the women's basketball fan. I get it. But like the other part of me was like, complaining about Minnesota sports is so freaking weird when the Minnesota Timberwolves, basically the worst franchise, if you want to talk about major men's sports, other than like probably, I mean, like regular season win percentage, like them in the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and before Tom Brady saved their butt. Like it was them in like that Minnesota sports franchise beat the Los Angeles Lakers. One of the, if you're ranking all men, they're like top 3. It's like Yankees, Cowboys, and Lakers, right? Like in terms of like sports franchises, right? Maybe I'm missing some, but like those are your big 3, and the Wolves beat them. If the Twins beat the Yankees, you wouldn't hear any sort of like, oh, Minnesota sports, woe is me. So like that's also where I'm at. I'm tired of it. Even as the Twins season goes down the toilet, like I'm tired of like the defeatism. I'm tired of it. Like you're allowed to be frustrated, especially like the Wild lost a series. Like you're certainly allowed to like be pissed off at your team for losing. But like I don't know, the Minnesota sports defeatism. I'm just over it. And from the Wolves fan base, there hasn't been much of it. And if you want to talk about we can do a whole nother pod on Game 5 of the WNBA Finals if we want to do that. And talk about defeatism, but yeah, I'm just, that's my rant. And it's not to go overly hard at the 10K takes. They're fine people, but like, yeah, it's not just them. There's plenty of other Twitter Minnesota sports Wolves.
Just zoom out. Yeah, zoom out sometimes, right? Zoom out, take a bigger look at the picture sometimes. I think again, it's easy to live in the moment, be prisoner of that, but it is what it is, and we'll keep the vibes positive here. And here in Wolves Land, we want to push that message, like fan however you want to fan, but we very much would encourage you to try and come at it with a positive perspective. And again, it's easy for us to say sitting here, beginning the second round tomorrow, or when you're listening to this tonight. But yeah, just there's some things that you could choose to do in life, and it's up to you to decide what you want to do.
Yeah. Also, speaking of sexist curses, I know there's only 6 teams in the league, but the first year of the Pro Women's Hockey League, guess who won? Minnesota. Like,
there you go.
If you're a hockey fan, like the women, like just watch women's sports, people. You'll enjoy it.
Yeah.
Nafisa Collier's awesome. Like, all right. That's where we'll wrap it up. We'll try to go live after games 1 and 2 here. Either Andrew or I will, from Target Center, be going live. And then probably sometime next week, Leo and I will hop on to do some sort of recap of the beginning of the series. It might be tough with all the back-to-back games, but yeah, we'll keep pumping out content. If you're looking for content, Leo and I both put out great videos following the Lakers series. Leo and his message to the haters, conveniently putting himself in the middle of the video. Love that for you, Leo. And then if you like movies, La La Land, I threw up the La La Land soundtrack over some highlights.
Beautiful.
For my videos, so you can find those on the Canis Twitter account and my Twitter account. Yeah, check those out. But for Leo, I'm Ryan. Thank you everyone for listening.
Get home, drive safe.
Go Wolves.
Ayoo!